This is a women's variation of the Adidas Predator 19.1 as part of the exhibit pack, which is validated by the label on the box that reads Predator 19.1 FGW, the W standing for women's. So if it's a women's boot, then you probably expect women's sizing as well, but that is not actually the case. For the first time possibly ever, we have a women's boot with men's sizing. What's going on, guys? Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you my review plus on-feet video of the brand new women's Adidas Predator 19.1 in the exhibit pack colorway that, as you can see, is quite a bit different from the men's variation, which is a nice bright blue. Instead, you get a combination of black, gray, and pink to create what I think is arguably one of the best colorways that we've seen since the return of the Predator. So just to be clear, this is a women's boot, but with men's sizing. So for example, if you wore a size 10 US in the regular men's variation, you'll wear a 10 US in the women's version as well. And that's also an important thing to note, that while this is a women's colorway, the color is actually the only difference that you'll find when compared to the men's variation. These are no longer women's fit like we saw from the Predator 18.1 generation that did have a couple women's releases. So in today's video, I want to go over all the details of this boot, take a closer look at this very good looking colorway, and essentially cover everything that you need to know about these, including how they fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around, watch the entire video. And if you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below. That'll take you to the review page on my website where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $225 retail price. If you guys do end up enjoying this video and perhaps want to see more reviews of women's boots or just more uncommon stuff in general, please support this video with a like. And if you're new here watching for the first time and don't want to miss out on future content from me, be sure to hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. So starting off with the colorway, I think it's kind of funny that it's almost become a bit of a cliche for so many women's specific colorways to include some form of pink. And I really feel like it's almost at the point where the girls don't want pink boots and the guys actually really like the pink boots. I'm not a big pink boot guy, but I think that if you were a guy and you did want to wear these, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't do that, especially considering that Adidas has effectively made this a men's boot with the women's label on the name. Either way, you're gonna find that the upper really shows off the prime knit base and that it features a combination of a light gray and a black as kind of the two main colors for that knitted material that almost gives it this kind of digi camo look that slowly fades into a more solid black as you get further towards the back of the shoe. Really like how that looks. I've always been a big fan of knitted uppers that show off the knitted construction of the material itself, which you really get that effect with this particular colorway. You're gonna notice as well that you have the light pink accent in the form of the stripes on the ridges in the prime knit upper, that kind of 3D texturing that it has. It's there on either side of the forefoot, a new design element for this generation of Predator that actually looks really good. It definitely pops against that black and gray background. You're gonna find the Adidas stripes are a reflective material, even though they look silver in the sunlight. And then you'll also notice that the laces, as well as the collar area, pretty much solid black in color, but when the collar stretches out, same thing goes for across the top of the foot, it reveals more of that light pink, where you can see the entire inside of the collar, including the insole itself, is that light pink color as well. More light pink in the form of this rubber element they've kind of slapped on the heel here for some reason. It still maintains the same heel counter. Again, same general construction as the men's variation. And then you have the Soleplate, which I think looks really, really good. It's not a wearable finish despite having this kind of semi-metallic look to it, but you'll notice that it has this kind of translucent white area in the forefoot, which is interesting because you can see that it does actually have what looks to be boost material kind of just there, but it's actually just a pattern within the plastic. There's no boost to be found on this shoe, which I think is kind of interesting. You have the black right here running through the middle, and then this kind of purpley pink color changing type plastic that again is not a wearable finish that I just think looks really, really good overall. In terms of just details, this is one of the more detailed colorways we've seen for the return of the Adidas Predator, and as a whole, I'm just a big fan of how they look. So when it comes to the boots themselves, we know that the changes made between the Predator 18.1 and the Predator 19.1 are very minimal. Pretty much the only thing that changed is some visual elements, the big thing being the inclusion of this rubber piece that they slapped on the heel. Other than that, the boots are virtually identical in every single way. When we're talking about the women's variation, the new Predator 19.1 women's is pretty much the same as the men's. Or if we look at the previous generation Predator 18.1 women's, it featured pretty well the same upper that you'd find on the men's version, but with a completely different sole plate and stud pattern that was more kind of sprint frame-esque, something like you'd find on the X line rather than the control frame that you find on the men's variation of the Predator. And you can see the stud pattern as well features these much smaller studs that dig into the ground and arguably provide better overall traction. I thought that this was a better variation of the Predator versus the men's version of the boot. And of course, this came in women's sizing, where the conversion is basically 1.5 sizes. So as an example, if I wore a size 9.5 men's, to have the exact same sizing in a women's boot, I'd have to buy a women's size 11, 1.5 sizes bigger. They've completely eliminated that need here with the women's Predator 19.1, and that it just has men's sizing. And I can tell you from experience working in a soccer store for several years that a lot of girls would come in the store and not really want the women's boots. One, either because they were pink, or two, because they didn't like the way that they fit. Having the slimmer women's fit, which Adidas was pretty much the last holdout for doing that, was something that a lot of girls simply did not like. They would just rather wear the men's variation. They preferred the way they look. They preferred the way that they fit. And that is essentially what Adidas has done here with their new women's Predator 19.1. It's just the men's version of the boot in a different color. So now that we've established that they are exactly the same as the men's version, here's what you should know about the Predator 19.1. The prime knit upper is very soft and relatively thin. If you were planning on picking these up in anticipation that they would feel anything like the classic Predators that you may have had several years ago, you'll be disappointed because they don't feel like that at all. Instead, what you're getting is a very soft sock-like wrap around your foot and a tighter fit than I think a lot of people would anticipate based on how these look. It does have this kind of interesting ridged 3D texturing running through the forefoot and through the midfoot area on the medial side, but that's honestly not something that you really notice all that much on feet. The touch on the ball is pretty much that of a sock. It's just very thin, there's a slight amount of padding to it, and comfort I think is the big thing about the Predator line as a whole right now. Laces run directly down the middle. It does have a one-piece construction to the upper as well, and I guess something worth noting in regards to the women's exhibit pack is that the Predator 19.1 is the top of the line option. They don't make this in a laceless variation, at least for this particular colorway, but they do make a couple of the takedowns. However, they don't look nearly as good because it doesn't have the same prime knit upper with this kind of cool knitted pattern in it. Either way, the boot does also have a mid-cut construction, which is there simply for the sake of looks. The boot, for the most part, fits and feels like that of a low internal plastic heel counter, and then the internal lining is pretty much just a smooth synthetic suede with a decent amount of padding. The removable insole is pink in color. As you can see, it features a nice soft synthetic suede lining on top, and it's made from a single layer of this black foam. Pretty much the same comfort insoles we've been seeing from the Adidas brand for almost 10 years now. The sole plate and stud pattern, if I'm being honest with you guys, is probably my least favorite part of the boot, and the main reason why is not because it's bad, but because I don't feel like it matches the upper. It gives the boot a very solid feel for sure, but the upper is very tight fitting and relatively thin. It almost feels like something you'd expect on a speed boot, but instead it has this fairly, I don't want to say bulky, but much more rigid and solid sole plate than I think the boot needs to have. It's called the control frame, and it's made from a decently thick layer of plastic material that definitely has some stiffness to it, but does soften up as you wear them in. And then it does have pretty much the standard Adidas stud pattern layout at this point, with the studs kind of being this hybrid of a triangular bladed style stud. For the most part, it's probably one of the least aggressive stud patterns on offer from the Adidas brand right now. And again, just not one of my personal favorites, but it does get the job done. And then finally, when it comes to weight, in a size 9.5 US men's, even though this is a women's boot, these weigh in at 8.6, 8.7 ounces, which is the same as the men's variation because they are in fact exactly the same. And as far as high-end boots go, it's not heavy by any means, but they are on the upper side of weight when it comes to most boots above the $200 price point. If you're looking for a super lightweight feel, the Predator series in general isn't necessarily going to provide that. So I've swapped out the stock black laces for some steel gray reflective SR SR4U replacement laces, where the gray obviously matches the gray you have on the boots, but these also have the reflective stripes, and you add the little reflective strips within the laces as well. Accents really nicely, makes your boots that much more unique. And it's an inexpensive way of changing up the style of your boots because so many people have the same colorways these days. So if you're interested in a pair for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. There'll be a little pop-up on screen as well as a link down below in the description. So if you're interested in a pair, be sure to go ahead and check that out. So just to be clear, while this is technically a women's boot, it is not women's fit. The shape, the width, even the sizing is identical to that of the men's variation of the boot, so no difference here whatsoever. On feet, the Predator 19.1 as a whole is pretty comfortable out of the box. The prime knit upper is pretty much as soft as you'll find from any knitted upper material. Really nothing to break in. It's just super, super flexible out of the box. All the stiffness that you'll find in the boot really comes from the sole plate, which does break in nicely as you wear the boots in after a couple playing sessions. But for the most part, it's more so just a matter of getting used to the way they fit and feel rather than actually breaking anything in. These aren't really going to give you any kind of issues as far as discomfort is concerned. When it comes to width, they're a little bit more snug fitting than I think a lot of people might expect. A decent amount of width through the heel and midfoot, but the toe box and forefoot definitely is a little bit more narrow than you might expect, at least lower volume. Not to the point where they are ideal for narrow feet, but they're not exceptionally wide is kind of what I'm getting at here. Either way, I think they will fit most people without too many problems. And as far as the sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and length is absolutely perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair for yourself, even though it's technically a women's colorway, I would recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, this is definitely somewhat of a strange release, but I do think that they look really, really good. It's a women's colorway with men's sizing, and basically everything else about these is exactly the same as the men's variation. So again, if you are a guy and you want to pick these up, don't be afraid to, because again, there's no difference from the men's version. What I will say about the Predator 19.1 as a whole is while it's not my cup of tea, it's a boot that I think is legitimately very good. I think if you're after something with a knitted upper that maintains a very simple design and feel, the Predator 19.1 is probably one of the better options out there in that the upper is thin, it's soft, it gives you that sock-like sensation, and the boot as a whole has a nice solid feel to it. As long as you're not after something that's very speed boot-esque and very lightweight on your feet, I think the experience you're going to have with the Predator 19.1 is one that you'll definitely enjoy. Anyways, guys, that's it for this review. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Again, if you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, you can click the first link down below. That'll take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $225 retail price. If you have any questions, as always, leave it down below in the comments, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.